Pro Audio Secrets, a show that helps you to find your own voice in sound.
Let's say I always try to keep my work as short as possible, find a very efficient solution so I don't spend so much on it. Loud sounds themselves, like a gunshot or an explosion, and this is the part where I'm getting a little bit excited. I never wanted to become a sound designer. For me, it's always just been a hobby.
If you want something, you have to do the thing even if you don't feel passionate about it, because you're passionate about the other outcome.
A large part of our player base is also very dedicated military. So if something doesn't sound right, they will know, and they also want to get it right. Good things happen when great preparation meets luck, and you cannot really change your luck so much. Like you can push for it, you can work hard on it, but on the preparation part, you can change a lot.
Meet Leon Beilmann, fellow German sound designer for game audio and also composer, working on his favorite game full-time, making a living from that, running a YouTube channel called Laxman, and also selling a digital product related around the plugin Faceplant called Revolution. That is in a nutshell what Leon is about. In our conversation, we get to know each other. I also share a lot of what I was going through in my years at Ubisoft and how passionate I am about online business. So if you want to learn from our stories and see what it actually takes to get to a certain level in your career, then this episode is for you. Enjoy. Welcome to the show, Leon. I'm really happy that you are here.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for reaching out.
I reached out because you were nominated for the Airwickles Content Creation Award alongside other people, also myself. And I thought this was a great ramp to just connect with you and reach out and to see if we can do something together. And here we are getting to know each other in this podcast episode.
Yeah, again, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
So I know that you run a YouTube channel. That's why you got nominated in the first place. Do you want to tell us a little bit about... Come again?
Which is still crazy to me, by the way. It's funny. But sorry, go on.
So could you tell us a little bit about what you currently do as an audio professional, and what is your mission in this whole game, and to get to know you a little bit?
Yes, so I'm currently working as a freelance sound designer and composer, which of course is a very, very broad statement, mainly in the gaming industry. I have mainly worked for one main customer for a long while now. I think it's over 4 years now, which is crazy. Which is Bohemia Interactive, the makers of DayZ and the ARMA franchise. But I personally mostly work on the ARMA franchise, which is, I still cannot believe it because that's the game that I grew up with. It's one of these stories where, I really wish I could, work on that one day, and it kind of became true. So thank you, universe, or whatever. And I also have some other projects that I try to push on the side. I recently got very much and way too deep into learning to script for Reaper, the digital audio workstation, which was a lot of fun and is a lot of fun, but has cost me quite a bit of sleepless nights. And sort of like some sub hobby, like some sub passion of mine is the world of sound synthesis, or trying to synthesize sounds that happen in the real world. I started it with vehicle engines, I think a bit over 2 years ago now, which is funny because I'm not really a vehicle guy. It just sort of happened. And now I recently got very, very much into planes.
I saw that you just released a YouTube video today about...
Oh, you already started, yeah.
Yes. And I also noticed your... The YouTube video about the the vehicle engines, where you also have a digital product around it, right? On Gumroad.
Yes. Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about your world as a freelancer? Because I want this conversation for the audience to learn about how to establish yourself in the market as a game audio professional, as an audio professional, as a creative sound designer, let's say, for movies or games. And you managed to do so very successfully. And again, I admire that you run your YouTube channel, that you sell digital products, that is already for me a sound designer 3.0. And that's actually what I'm also passionate about. And that's why I definitely wanted to have this episode with you. So can you give us a little bit of this? Okay, you're a freelancer, you're working mainly on one brand, actually the game you grew up with. And so how did this whole thing come together that you are now situated as this person who actually works full time as a game audio designer and having all these things around you in your universe?
Yeah, got it. Well, I think I have to preface this a little bit because I really think I'm a bit of an anomaly in a sense that I really feel way more than for most other people I know, stuff really fell into my lap. You know, like when you ask me, hey, can you give some tips on how to establish yourself as a sound designer? I have some thoughts in my head, but based on my own story, quote unquote, I barely can do any tips. I really have the feeling I have always just been at the right place at the right time and happen to have the right skill set, you know?
Okay.
Well,
But
okay.
we can then already say that our stories are unique to ourselves, and everyone who wants to get into this field has to explore their own story. And our stories can just inspire and maybe show a little bit of the dedication it actually takes to get there. But yeah, please go on.
Yeah, I would totally agree with this. I'll try to break it down somewhat in a somewhat short manner. So my, let's say, audio journey actually started with music all the way back in 2009, when I was around 13, 14, I think. And I've never really been into like music or audio, whatever, you know, like that was a time like 12, 13, 14 years old where people usually discover kind of like their bands, you know, and they become fans of bands. And I wasn't really like consciously listening to music. I didn't have like a band, etc. My dad, however, has just always been sort of a raver. He was always been into electronic music. And my parents divorced. I moved in with my dad, and I was on a very good path of becoming this typical, you know, like cellar kid, like just sitting in front of his PC, not doing much. Luckily, having a very small but very dedicated circle of friends that I still keep until today, which is one of the biggest gifts that my life has given me so far. But I was still spending a lot of time on my computer. And at one point, my dad basically was like, hey, so you sit in front of the computer a lot, and I have this software, I think it was a beat machine, more or less. It was, not sure if you know it, it was Rebirth. I think it was also of Propellerhead, the guys who made Reason, yes. And he gave me Rebirth, which basically was more of a glorified drum sampler or drum machine, in a sense. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, you know, and I did some stuff on his PC when coming home from school. But it was really more of I'm doing stuff because I'm bored. You know, there was no intention of I want to become anything with audio and music. But since it was fun to me, my dad gave me a back then, of course, let's say trial version of Propellerhead Reason 4.0. And I didn't do anything with it for, I think, over a year or so. I was like, nah, I don't want to do music. And at some point, I just got so bored that I did it again and kind of got into it. And as a friend of mine told me a while ago, you know, after I showed him my first tracks, I was like, you know, Leon, I would really like to say that, you know, the talent has always been there, but no. Like, it sounded absolutely horrible. I had no musical education. I didn't play any instrument. And it sounded accordingly, you know. But it was fun, and I realized that I was getting very close to making something that sounded similar to the stuff that I listened to myself back then from time to time when my dad was listening to the electronic music. It was like DJ Tiesto, DJ Duck, and, you know, all those old names in the German techno and trance scene. And that's how I got into music, actually. And fast forward a little bit, I really got into gaming and specifically military simulations, which was ARMA, Armed Assault ARMA, the game that I work on now as well, or the game franchise. And I started playing it with friends in like huge communities with like those huge operations. And then eventually ARMA 3 came out, and I was already knee deep into this whole military thing. I was literally playing with guys from the German army who kind of used this to, you know, train for themselves, but also offer some knowledge to other guys. And then I realized in ARMA 3 that it was very easy to exchange sounds. And I didn't really like the vanilla sounds back then in the ARMA 3 alpha, so the sounds that shipped with it. And of course I was like, oh, I can probably do better. So I downloaded some crappy YouTube videos, spliced them together, and back then FL Studio then. I switched from Reason to FL Studio. And I mean, objectively it sounded horrible, but I thought that I created greatness back then, you know. It was like a small guy, and it was like, yeah, it sounds amazing. And other people actually liked it as well for some reason. And I was like, oh, it's cool, I should continue with this. And at the same time, I really got into scripting as well, you know, like building missions for the game and scripting functionality. And huge kudos to my friend Jonas, who came into our TeamSpeak server back then and told me, dude, back then we weren't friends. He was a stranger. He got into the TeamSpeak server and he told me, dude, your scripts suck. They really suck. I was like, oh yeah, I know. I'm not a professional scripter or anything. And he was so taken aback by it because I was like, yeah, you know, I know that they suck. I can't script. That he basically told me, so do you want to learn how to, you know, script and program? I was like, yeah, sure. And he taught me the fundamentals of programming, basically, you know, what are functions? How does a for loop work? Why do we avoid redundancy? Stuff like this. And this has really, really opened up my love for, let's say, a systematic approach to all sorts of things. And I just continued with it. And okay, I'm starting a huge monologue here. I'll try to speed it up a little bit.
No. It's let me just digest this for a second, because you said you could alter the sounds of an existing game and changing the sounds into the game so that other people could also experience the game with your sounds.
Yes, sound modding. So I modded the game. I mean, I guess you're from the gaming world, so okay, maybe some others are not from the gaming world. So I modded the game. A mod is basically just some additional content that was made by the users and not the actual creators of the game. And that's how I got into sound modding rather than just music, basically.
Yeah, and then that took off, and then you met your now friend who then taught you basically how to script correctly.
Yes.
And that way you established this systemic approach to things and also to sound.
Yeah.
And that is also something I realized when I watched your YouTube content, because you break down complex systems regarding sound, like what is a sound in reality and what is a perceived sound in a certain media. And then you break up those concepts and conceptualize certain things that are about audio. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. Like I really view it as some sort of passion of mine. You know, it's like my whole approach on how I view audio or how I go about my work is really this. And I really think I have to thank my friend Jonas for this, because my sound design work and scripting work kind of emerged together. And I think it fused in some way, you know?
So from what I could understand now, and from what, let's say, business coaches and freelance coaches tell in general, is that you kind of niche down or specialized in a way, like in a natural way, around your special interest, around those things that you are kind of natural with. Like I call this your unique voice in sound. And to see that this concept really works, I mean, you're the living proof. I'm also the living proof. I have a way different story and also another unique approach to sound. But we are both like kind of handling this freelance business and can survive with it. And so for you, like what I find fascinating is you just do you, and you present that also on YouTube. You don't even show your face there, and yet you have around 5,000 to 6,000 subscribers there. And this is already a substantial amount for the niche you are like talking in and not showing your face. And this is substantial. And also your like full-time work is substantial. And it's just for me so nice to see, you know, that when people actually go full throttle on what they really are, and what they can provide in terms of their unique approach to something, and that with a full amount of dedication, then things happen. And for you, even your dream game, you now work on that full time. I mean, it's so amazing.
Oh yeah, I'm very grateful about this, and I will 100% sign what you just said. Though I would say I was in a, let's say, a little bit of a privileged position in the sense that I was able to develop those skills without any ulterior motives, you know. And I really think this is why I'm here now. I will gladly say that I'm, you know, this trope of being a lazy person, but let's say I always try to keep my work as short as possible, find a very efficient solution so I don't spend so much on it, you know. And I think if I would have started out back then telling myself, you know, hey, I really want to become a sound designer, like this is my dream. Honestly, especially in knowing myself back then, I wouldn't have done it. Like I wouldn't have made it, you know. I was in a privileged position in the sense that I never wanted to become a sound designer until, well, now it's not so recently, but until not too long ago. For me, it's always just been a hobby. So I found it worthwhile to invest time in my hobby because it was what I did in my pastime, you know. I know that a lot of people, how should I say, nowadays, I'm not that old, but I feel even 10 years ago, sound design has been a lot more niche than it is today, in a sense of there is a lot more education around it, meaning there's a lot more people that are aware of it. It's becoming a lot more settled in the job market, while the actual demand for the work isn't really there, which is why we have all these open to work guys on LinkedIn who are really struggling. My heart goes out to them. And I think what really helped me for a long time was simply not to want this, you know, like I just did it. And once I realized, hey, I want this, I kind of had the skill set and I didn't have to go through this whole process of how do I start out, basically. And
yeah, but that's great.
Biggest advantage
and
I
again,
had.
Disadvantage, I mean, what does it actually mean? You just said two things. You did it and you had the skills. So you did it and that's why you had the skills. So learning by doing is still a rule that no one can avoid. Even if you don't want to work in this field, if you don't do the work, then you will never have the skill set, you know? I just watched a couple of videos from Akash Takar and also from Aftertouch Audio, shout outs to both of them. You know, great educational content. And they also say you cannot show up to whatever, let's say, whatever it is. I cannot come up with the exact example that they mentioned, but if you have like if you're an actor and you have a casting and you show up and you don't know how to act, you don't know nothing, you just there, a normal person, not an actor at all. Like, how can you convince anyone that you could do the job? For example, yeah. So and that's also very true for us. Also, like, I'm a rapper, you know,
I know, yeah.
I go back with this like a long time, late 90s, and for us it was also like you have to have your stuff together, right? Because when this moment comes when you meet whatever your idol or this producer you always wanted to work with on a whatever, on the street corner or in the studio or at a venue or whatever, you just have to and then you have to do your stuff and you have to be like pristine with your skill set. Otherwise, you don't know your lyrics, you don't know, you know, how to present, then yeah, this guy will not be impressed. And just mentioning here. Okay, so...
Sorry, 1 second. I also just really want to mention real quickly that I love the work you do, like helping young people through rap. I think that's amazing work. I saw it a while ago, and huge props to you, man. Also just mentioning, go on.
I mean, I want to do this more. Last time I really engulfed in this was already 2 years ago, when I did a workshop around the Easter break for a whole week. Mm-hmm. That was an amazing experience, you know, just see people, like young people, how they struggle and write some lyrics with them and explore this world together with them, and then like learn about them, because that's the beautiful thing about music and about lyrics and about poetry, that you can actually express yourself. And that is also true for making sound design, right? Because we have a story to tell with sound. So tell me about your approach beyond from the systematic thing. How do you go about sound creatively, and what keeps you going with this?
That's an interesting question, specifically, I think, because of the project that I work on the most, which is ARMA, and which I've also modded for a long time.
Can you tell us a little bit about that project for anyone who doesn't know it?
Yeah, right. Pardon me. ARMA is well, I don't think we call ourselves military simulation. It is an authentic military shooter, but let's say the game strives to be very realistic and not just about shooting. That's always been a large part of the game. We cooperate with the Red Cross. ARMA 3, for example, had a whole campaign dedicated to showing the aftermaths of a war, actually dealing like how the civilian population deals with ordnance that is still lying around, psychological trauma, etc. But also on the military side, we focus a lot on, logistics, etc. Meaning we really want to immerse the player in a, let's say, realistic experience in a way, which means that, it's not a given that it happens this way, but we aim to deliver a very authentic soundscape. Let's put it this way. And that's also the approach that I tried to take when I started doing sound modding back then. So it's kind of a continuation. So, which means that while oftentimes when doing sound design work, which I've also done, like I didn't just work on ARMA, but usually, let's say when I approach sound design personally, I would look at the material, and think of something, what would give me the correct emotional impact, basically, and maybe play around with some ideas. While the whole process of designing a sound for ARMA, for me personally, and I guess for a lot of my colleagues as well, is kind of the other way around, because everything we do happens in real life. We want to ground it in real life. So let's say, super weird example, but there is a rocket, a missile actually, the Milan 2, which kind of spins as it flies away. So it has a very distinct sound. I need to know this. Our player base, or a large part of our player base, is also very dedicated military nuts. So if something doesn't sound right, if there is like a distinct sound missing, they will know, and they also want to get it right. So rather than looking at the material and being like, what would be a cool sound for this? The approach usually really is, okay, we get a lot of reference footage, I get all the reference footage that I can get. And I try to really pick out, what am I hearing? Because especially when listening to vehicles, certain weapon systems, explosions, whatever, oftentimes you hear a sound and you have no idea what it is. And oftentimes it is related to some interesting acoustic phenomenon or so. And then I go down a rabbit hole of this specific acoustic phenomenon. And afterwards I know what it's supposed to sound like, but I'm also a lot more educated about a very niche part of, audio physics, basically. And that is a lot of fun to me. A lot of fun. I haven't done...
So you go to the level of physics with those examples that you have to research of certain weapon systems.
100%. I mean, how should I say? Loud sounds themselves, like a gunshot or an explosion, and this is the part where I'm getting a little bit excited, because that is my that is my niche very much by now. Loud sounds in general are super fascinating, because in our daily life we don't really deal with so many loud sounds, especially not explosive sounds that basically just give an impulse. We might hear an object falling over that's large and people go, "Ugh." But luckily, we are not exposed. Well, luckily, large parts on this world are not exposed to gunfire regularly. Let's put it this way, But loud sounds in general are so interesting, because they just send an impulse out, basically, and then the environments and physics take over. And what, in the end, arrives at our ear can be a conglomerate of all sorts of physical, illusions, effects, and smearing, whatever. There's so much going on. So just discovering why it sounds like this is such a blast to me personally, 100%. Yeah.
I love this, that you just say like, this is where I'm getting excited. Like where other people would say like, oh my God, physics. I'm like, no, please leave me alone. I just want the sound to make it sound great. I don't care what the physics are. But yeah, that's like, I can totally understand like why people want to work with you, because you really like are thorough, and you really care about your specific thing that you do, which is realism rather than hyper realism in that game, clearly.
To some
And
extent.
and then you're dedicated to this extent, and you're even excited about it to do your due diligence. And while you are doing this, you even share this with the world so that other people can understand those concepts. And you just broke it down again, like just in a nutshell, I love this. This is your unique thing, and you can just present it to the world, and people can benefit from it, and that's so great.
I guess it is, and I'm happy you think this way, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is I think so much about how to help people, what actually do certain sound people in their different career stage need, What is the struggle for a junior? What is the struggle for an intermediate? What is the struggle for a senior or a lead or someone who owns a company? I'm thinking about these things because I'm so passionate about mentoring, and I'm also passionate about online business. So I just see myself as someone who wants to build something that is beyond of me sitting in this studio and doing Foley for projects.
If I may ask, do you have like a specific vision in mind that you can share? Like, it sounds super interesting to me.
Just me being a creative, but also wanting to be more than that, in a sense that I want to do either solopreneurship or entrepreneurship. And, I was freelancing in my early years as a rapper, but I never made it very far because rap was priority one. And then when I got into film sound, I went the route of employment. So after my apprenticeship, I was employed for 7 years at a post-production facility. So I had then 10 consecutive years being full-time in a film post-production environment. And after that, I was hired by Ubisoft and worked 5 years there. So 15 years of being full-time in the workforce. And now coming back to the freelance thing, I thought like, okay, this industry is so fragile right now. And if I wasn't a Foley artist, which is maybe the very one thing that actually gets outsourced today, more than anything else, I would maybe have no job at all. And if I hadn't have all the credits from 10 years in movies and 5 years in AAA video games, then again, maybe I wouldn't have any job, For example, when I was working at Ubisoft, I, at a certain point in time, needed money for a dental kind of thing, a couple of thousand for a couple of teeth. Yeah. And then I tried to reactivate all my film contacts, because within all the latest years, let's say, I was here and there making a Foley edit for a movie and then made some money at the side. And it was also fine with Ubisoft. I had even a contract with them that I can do this. So then I activated all my clients or the people that I knew and tried to find a job just to, cover for this bill. And I would even invest my holiday time for this. And it was so hard to get something, even back then, 5 years ago. And now I imagine, haven't I had started my social media as the Foley teacher, I would be out of work today, because again, all of my clients that I previously had, or let's say last year, I started working with one contact that I actually knew from my years in Berlin. And that then had like a ripple effect, and a couple of new clients came through this first project I did with this, contact that I had. But all the other contacts that I had didn't come through with any work. And now even this client didn't send me a single job this year. So all my previous clients that I had apart from social media was zero this year. And all the work that I did, including like stuff for like, I just realized it today because I made like a slideshow, like a carousel on Instagram with all the responses from my clients when they receive my Foley and what they text me back. And then I realized like it's all international stuff. Most of my clients are in the US actually for like speaking 2025, which is amazing because I always wanted to work on like US stuff, and it's more like indie and art house, no blockbuster obviously, but already like I work with people from LA, from New York. I have a huge client in Belgium who sends me now work all the time.
I love how excited you get.
But this is like amazing,
Yeah.
That I through social media I could at least sustain my my freelance business. But what happens if Foley gets replaced by AI, or the industry completely shuts down and work is only being done in, let's say, shout outs to Chile and Venezuela and Ukraine, so that someone who lives in the West is just simply too expensive to do any of this kind of freelance work? What do I do then? So that's where my like entrepreneurial spirit comes in, or solopreneurial. I mean, this is all over the news and media, but I kind of felt always like someone who gets things done and, wants to do stuff with my band. I was the band leader, the driving force who organized everything. And now I have this vision of helping people to either elevate in their career or help them to be at least better sound designers. And the one thing that I can offer, which is my unique thing, is I know how to record proper Foley, or let's say studio Foley related sounds in a non-Foley studio, because that's how I learned it.
Interesting.
And
interesting angle. Yes. Got it.
So I could teach you now in your room how you could actually record all your physics objects and impact sounds and your footsteps in your room, and you would get really great results.
Question.
And I would say,
if I may,
of course.
In percentage, how much of it would be acoustics, or trying to get acoustics in order in a short-term format?
I mean, you have already an absorption panel in the back. I assume you have a little bit more in your room.
Oh, yeah.
So you have already a little bit of a controlled environment. So I would say in your case, not much.
Okay, I'm not speaking of my case specifically, just in general, like how much of it in general would be acoustics in a usual...
Yeah, I mean, if you work in a plain room without any acoustical treatment, no furniture in this, and it's like an empty flat, you will have a really hard time to get rid of all these reflections. But, the main thing, what I know is basically this foam here, because it's called a Xylomea, and people who build recording studios know this. You can just insulate energy with this. So putting that under your surface actually absorbs all the energy you put into the surface, and you don't translate it into your room.
So
and therefore
resonant.
You don't. Yeah, exactly. And then it's the resonance of the own resonance of your room is then not triggered by the impact and the energy you put into the surface. And that's a way, how you can record impact sounds at home. And then there's another thing which enables you to capture the low end, because in your room, probably you would still have to cut low end a lot on your main mic, even with this method. But then how to get back the low end is also a way that something I developed with a low end microphone that is just capturing the low end, and then you can mix that into your main signal again.
Don't reveal all your secrets. Don't reveal all your secrets.
No, this is, that's also something I'm learning while I'm doing the business coaching, because you cannot imagine how many hours, I'm grinding in order to understand online business. It's just insane. Back in the days, I was designing a studio for one of my employers. Yeah. And I was grinding maybe 2 years until I understood this thing fully. What gear do we need? How do we wire everything? What do I have to do in order to get this studio like technically going? And it was a complex thing for me because it was involving 7.1 cinema speaker system, combining with a 5.1 TV speaker system, all over one interface or infrastructure, and then getting that with analog preamps. And it was just a huge amount of work and like a big concept to understand, right? Yes. But I was so relentless because passionate about it that I just grinded over this for 2 years until I had everything that I needed. And that was also like a very big struggle within my marriage back in the days, because this was the only thing I could talk about for 2 years, when I came home. And now I'm divorced. Maybe there was one reason for that, but okay, it is what it is. And now I'm grinding over the online business,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning so much about how to find your avatar, how to present yourself, and also like what's your offer, what problem do you solve?
If I may, could you define avatar for me, please?
Avatar is just your dream customer.
Customer side. Okay.
So, for example, the gaming company you work for is basically your dream avatar in terms of client or contractor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking about how can I help audio professionals to elevate in their career. And then I look at certain stages of people. That's what I'm currently thinking of. Like, okay, what does a junior need? What does an intermediate need? What does a senior need? What does a team lead need? And how can I help those people in order to elevate? How can I solve their problems? And would they even pay me for that? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole idea for it. And I do a lot of free mentoring because that's the whole idea behind this. If you cannot come up with free value that people actually understand what you're about, and that they understand what they can buy from you, apart from what the free value has to be so huge that people is just like, okay, if I don't give this guy my money, it's stupid, because this elevates me so much that if I don't do it, it would be stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole angle about online business and with being a creator, having now 60,000 on Instagram, 9,000 on LinkedIn, building YouTube now.
Congrats.
This is like very huge,
Yeah.
And I really grinded 2 years for this, but from the monetary side, it's really like not going accordingly. And so this is such a complex thing for me to understand, how can I tell people what I have to offer and what it is actually what my unique thing is that I offer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? So I think about this like for 1 month now, because I was not working on too many projects now. I'm spending all my time like, okay, what is my core offer? Because in the beginning, it was very clear. I want to help you set up your home Foley corner. And I did that with maybe 10 people. They paid me 1,500 for that over maybe over 16 months or something. So I made more than 10,000 euros online with coaching, which is great for the first year. But I think like this is not something I could live from, But I believe that the value it has could benefit way more people than that. And I have already like 60, 70,000 people. So why only 10 people out of 70,000? Yeah.
May I give some input? Like
Yeah.
some stuff that comes to my head. I mean, you're saying it's about offering the free value and then making people go, oh, I should really pay this guy, which I think, it's a, let's say on an humanistic level is a great concept. But I can imagine, just put it this way, I'm not doing what you're doing. It could be in the end an issue with the target audience, because obviously you want to help people that, if you say you want to help people, in their career, etc., it will likely be people that are starting out, that are currently struggling or whatever. And speaking as a business guy, I did study business management, by the way. It's a whole different story that came in between.
Okay. This was one of my questions before, but I skipped it. Yeah.
And those people will probably not be the kind of people that actually maybe can spend so much money, like that's the first thought that came to my head. If you want to help people that are struggling, are those people that will be able to finance your life in the end, like
exactly. Yeah. This is true. So this is like this whole topic. That's why it's so complicated, right?
Yeah,
I have this target audience of audio people because that's actually the people I want to help. And I can help because I have the expertise. And then again, you say the correct thing. What is the purchasing power of that audience? So what would be a perfect product fit? So for someone who's starting out and struggling with money and who actually maybe have already spent a lot of money for education, like studying, especially in the US, so expensive. In Germany, not so much, but then people go to private schools even here and spend maybe 15,000 euros on School of Audio Engineering. That's what you did?
No, not School of Audio Engineering, but I did go to a private school because I felt that the only way to really make a living was to work simultaneously. So I did dual studies. But sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Okay, but there you go. I mean, two points here. You did that. You spend a lot of money, and you even worked at the side in order to finance that because you saw that as the best way for you to achieve your goal. So, not correct?
We were talking about your side of the things. We can talk about how I went there later. Let's focus on your story for now.
Okay, let's assume this is the case. Yeah, you came up with a huge amount of money for your education. Yeah, that's a fact, isn't it?
No.
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 Okay, but people do.
Yes.
People spend a lot of money for their audio education. And they come up with the money. So I know, for example, Akash Takar, like kudos to him. He's really the GOAT of online coaching in audio. Yeah. When he puts out a course, even for beginners and intermediates, he can make, I don't know how much exactly, but 6-figure with one course, like a cohort-based course. Yeah.
In the audio field.
Yeah. Like $100,000, $200,000 for one course that he gives over a time period of, I don't know, let's say 8 weeks or something. Yeah. With 50 people. And I think the last course he opened up for 350 people even. I don't know if it's sold out, but this is for me like the role model that this is possible. And so audio, because when we talk about audio people, like, look at me, like I have gear for like so many €1,000 over the years acquired. Yeah. People like, why does Thomann exist? Why, people buy like so much gear over the years, or they buy plugins, they buy sound libraries, but they don't really understand that investing in education would maybe even like skyrocket their career way more than a new plugin or a new microphone. And that's the whole point of online marketing, because I don't have more than 10 clients who came up with €1,500 for my coaching because I didn't communicate the value correctly, and people don't understand what they would get. Yeah. And that's the whole mission. And then also market and product fit. I mean, I cannot sell a 7,000 euro coaching that aims to a specific person to someone who is not that specific person. So that's the whole thing. Like, how can I, like, that's why I'm thinking about, okay, I have now this, I did one-on-one coaching, and then I shifted towards my Pro Audio Academy. This was something I was like heavily grinding on in December and January. And then I launched it in February. And now since March, I have like 12 members in there. And now my goal is to scale that. Yeah. So I managed from 10 people over 1 year to 10 people in one place that I'm coaching simultaneously, which is a success. Again, not monetarily, you know, the whole thing did cost me a lot of money because the infrastructure costs money. And then people purchased for a very low price, a whole year of mentorship. So it was average around, let's say, 500 euros. So it's 5K for 1 year of me helping 10 people. Yeah. But I'm happy to do this because that's also like solopreneurship. You know, if you don't start, if you don't fail, if you don't elevate and iterate, you will never know. And for example, Akash the Car, one of my first podcasts that I was interviewed by was with his podcast, Sound Business Podcast. And actually, I made that happen because I just asked him, do you want to interview me? You know, when I gained my first kind of 10, 20,000 followers, I knew this is leverage. So I contacted him and he said, yes, of course. So I was like 1.5 hours with this guy and I could ask him like all these questions. Yeah. But he told me things. He told me like, yeah, I'm using Circle. I'm doing this cohort-based courses. You know, I couldn't even write it down. It was so far away from my comprehension. It's just like I hit a wall, you know, this guy was just on another level. And now it took me 2 years almost so that I actually now understand what he's doing. Yeah. And I'm learning and learning and learning and learning. And now today I watched 1 hour, 2 hours of his YouTube videos. And now I'm realizing what I'm doing wrong with my whole YouTube channel, for example. And that was catalyzed by another like online business coach that I now binged for 2 weeks or something to understand like how you actually create content to make people understand what your offer is. Yeah. But don't sell yourself in a way that is not authentic, but really show people what you want to do and what you have to offer. And then you find the right people who actually want this, you know? And this is such like a task, you know? You studied business. Tell me about it. Quick one. Usually I use this tiny slot to ask you if you haven't subscribed to wherever you watch or listen, please do so and follow or subscribe. Now I want to extend that a little bit because as we were talking about mentorship and about online business and about helping people to elevate quicker, if you already feel that you resonate with this and you could see yourself working together with me, just feel free to DM the word industry on Instagram and then you can set up a free 20-minute call with me and then we can talk further. We can talk your situation, what you're currently struggling with and if I can help you. If that's for you, I'm looking forward to get to know you. And other than that, let's get back to the episode.
So sorry, I have to ask one more question. Well, first and foremost, I love how, you know, you really give off the vibe as someone who's like extremely entrepreneurial, but with the right mindset in the sense that you don't just focus on the business, you actually want to do stuff that is good for people and great stuff. And that is very, very lovely just to hear, you know, notice you going on the rant. But at the same time, you also still seem super into your, you know, general Foley work. So I'm really just curious from all the impressions that I got from you now, if you lean back, think for a second, like what is currently the most fun part of your being as a freelancer, as a Foley teacher, whatever, you know, like what currently makes you really happy in your daily life?
All of the things I'm doing, you know,
oh, that's great.
This is like, yeah, thanks to God, that I'm actually doing all the things that I want to do. And sometimes and don't get me wrong, everything is hard, because grinding on that online business, trying to understand this is hard. And it feels like failing over and over and over again. And all my content strategy, you don't know how much time I'm investing in this. Also money. I spent way more money than those 23,000 that I maybe earned through online coaching into this whole thing. I spent almost 1,000 euros every month for my video editing team, all the software that I use, and all these things. Like, it costs a huge amount of money. So, and then not succeeding in this, is a pain. But I love this, because I see continuing a step by step. Now I understand more. Now I know more clear what I have to do, and trying things. And then it's hard, now I have 1 week of not working in Foley production, right? So then keeping myself accountable and doing the most important things for this whole online thing to grow is so hard. Because maybe the hardest thing that I have to do is the least thing that I want to do, I want to record, I don't know, another tutorial, or I want to record the first proper YouTube video which positions my offer. Okay, I did that. But I also have to go into the community and restructure the whole thing, which I actually got help from one of my mentors who went through this with me. And now I have a blueprint what I have to change. But I don't do it because it's so overwhelmingly complicated for me to although it isn't, it's the same like with WISE, for example. I have all the certificates for WISE, but I never really got into it because it is like just this thing that I'm not so passionate about. And I never really had to do it because I worked at Ubisoft as a senior Foley artist, and the deal was you do the assets and other people implement. Okay, fine. Would I have been a better senior Foley artist at Ubisoft had I known WISE over the years as I know Pro Tools? Yes. But I didn't do it. Why? Because I don't really feel as passionate about it as working with Pro Tools, working on sound effects, working like the stuff that I love, And okay, but then where's the line, If you want something, you have to do the thing, even if you don't feel passionate about it, because you're passionate about the other outcome or the other thing on the other side of that. That's what you're passionate about. So you have to also take this into account and do it. Yeah. Sometimes it is like that. If you want to be, let's say, successful or achieve a certain goal. For example, stop me if I'm talking too much, but one thing that is, one thing, for example, I wanted to always have international blockbuster credits. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I struggled so hard in Berlin. You cannot believe what I pulled off, in order to work with this one team. Shout outs to Hanse and Carsten. They do all the only Foley team in Germany who does the 120 million movies, and and we were like neighbors. Our studios were in the same district in Berlin. So I invited them for lunch. I tried this. I even convinced my boss to meet with Hanse in order that he might rent some space there in his facility so that I can be at least closer to them working in the same building, because they would never accept me as a team member. Yeah. Mm. And then the Ubisoft thing came up, and again, I never intended to work in game audio. Yeah. I stopped being a gamer, to be honest, with Tony Hawk 1 and PlayStation 1.
Till today, like you're still not playing much?
No, because I feel like dumb when I play. It's so frustrating for me, because I like excellence, I read a book from I hate that I don't read books a lot. But the book that I read is from Josh Waitzkin, who managed to be a chess master and a world champion in Tai Chi. You know, I just love being excellent in what you do. And that's also my approach when it comes to rapping, you know. I cannot just rap and be mediocre. I just have to be like the best of the best. And that's why I love, for example, Harry Mack shoutouts, because he now raised the bar in freestyle rapping to a level where I just say, yeah, that's it, you know. If I have,
I don't know him, but I know what you mean.
Check it out if you like barely are interested in improvisation or
Definitely.
rap, because this guy is just from another planet. But imagine me not going into sound design and becoming the person who I am now, continuing with the rap thing. This would be exactly my mindset. But this wasn't just written for me, you know. My path was not that, and I'm not unhappy about it, or I don't have sorrow because this wasn't my path, although I wanted it so heavily for many years. But I had a better thing for me going, and I'm happy with that. So the thing that I wanted to mention, I went through this 5 years of Ubisoft, which at the beginning was a dream come true because I could work on AAA blockbuster things. You know, that was the main reason why I wanted to go there. Not because I'm a gamer, not because I hate movies. And no, the contrary. Like I love movies. You know, I had the the best thing going in Berlin. I was living the dream life there. Five bedroom flat for 1,000 euros in the best district next to the Tempelhofer Flughafen.
Yeah.
The job that paid me enough money to sustain that life, you know. The next step was to find a new studio for me as a Foley artist, and we were so close to, you know, signing the contract for that new studio. And then the Ubisoft thing came, and I gave everything up, you know, including my whole life that I built in Berlin for more than 10 years.
Damn.
Going to Düsseldorf, a place where I know nobody, to a company that I don't know anything about it except for it's one of the biggest ones in the world, and they offer me to work on Avatar. You know, I just do this because that's the thing I always wanted. And okay, I take the risk. And then also I stay persistent and stick through this because I worked there for 5 years. And believe me, those years were not easy because so many things went different to what I expected. There was no studio. Then people didn't really require my services as much as the audio director intended when he built the team. Shoutouts to Stefan Randelshofer, who is now head of audio at Larian.
Larian, yep.
You know, this guy is like a dinosaur, you know, like a giant in game audio. Yeah. And he has his unique skills. So I'm thankful that he put me on the team. And then 5 years go down, and I feel a lot of the time like not seen. I feel frustrated because I don't see any results of my work. You know, I'm coming from film, so my kind of reward cycle is kind of instant, right? I make a scene, I press play, I'm rewarded. Okay, let's go on.
It's so
now I work in games, yeah, AAA stuff. I record. Imagine like I get there and I have to record a full stack of footsteps for the whole Avatar game. So that means 15 different foliage or like forest, veld kind of surfaces. And then all the RDA stuff like concrete and dirt and whatnot in a office room where you can hear everyone talking outside. You have the street like banging and then you have the coffee machine. And it's a normal office room with a drum set in it, with like all different instruments, and just like 1-2 square meters of space for my own gear that I brought, like 15,000 euros of my own gear that stand in that room. And that's how I had to record a whole set of footsteps for Avatar. And I said, this is impossible, you know. I ended up recording stuff, going through Düsseldorf and grabbing leaves from the street and recording in there. But then I was like denoising the triple amount of time. and then editing a quadruple amount of time with results that were just like horrific. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I told them, look, guys, and then sitting like from being in a edit suite all my life, climatized, AC, whatever, big, like proper acoustic speaker. I have my environment, I can go to a proper 7.1 mixing stage to check my results. Like I'm coming from this like luxurious world, and then I'm sitting there in a 30 square meter room with 8 people under an AC directly the door in my back. Yeah. And then I have to edit with headphones for this is, you cannot imagine like you coming from like mediocre TV kind of like small time cinema world, and then you work on blockbuster video games, and you like
Those
just like,
other,
yeah, I can do this in my mother's house like 10 times better than here. Yeah. Okay. Then I convinced them to rent a studio. And there was just one studio in Düsseldorf that was actually closed down a week before. And then I managed to find the right person, to get the key to the studio, to connect with the office upstairs, to get electricity to the lower floor where the Foley stage was, bring in again my own equipment, and then record again for 3 days all the footsteps, and then edit for another month or something, and then we had the steps in the game. Yeah.
Damn, dude, that's rough. But
so that was my start at Ubisoft. Yeah, and then they promised me like a proper Foley studio, and then that wasn't there. So I organized an 11 square meter vocal booth for maybe 25,000 euros or something, and then we put that in a huge office space, which was then my Foley area.
Like
yeah?
a portable booth.
Yeah, it was from Boxy. It's an Italian company. So this was a used booth from a studio in Berlin. Mm-hmm. And so we bought that. They deconstructed it in Berlin, brought it to Düsseldorf, and then built it up in this like 80 square meter office area in Ubisoft office. And that was then my realm for 5 years almost. Yeah. So I had this 11 square meter booth, and the rest of the space I used for my storage for props. So I had that was the good thing about Ubisoft. They gave me a couple of thousand every year for props. So I, grew the props collection to a huge amount, and then we had like a huge inventory of props there, and still only this 11 square meter vocal booth that I had to record all the sounds in. Yeah. And then I went through recording impact sounds, physics objects, like really boring stuff, like metal impacts for 2 weeks, and then editing this whole stuff for 4 weeks. Like my ears, like every impact, my ear like closes down. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what you have to do if you want those credits, in my case, and I just kept with that. And I just sticked with it for 5 years until this project was done. And now I have the credit, and I was even nominated for Best Game Foley.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah. From recording stuff in an 11 square meter vocal booth. But to be honest, it was not only my work that went into this Avatar game, right? I mean, most of the stuff was done by Formosa, and then they also exchanged all my footsteps. This has a different story, but we don't go into this. In the end, I recorded a lot of stuff for that game, and it is Foley that I recorded, and it was nominated for Best Foley. So I definitely have a part of that credit because I spent a couple of years on that, right? Even though I did not the bulk and maybe not the very shiny parts, not the player Foley, but I did, for example, the system, the harvesting system. Like when you grab a fruit or you grab any material and you harvest that into your pouch, I did the whole system, all the design work, everything. Recorded everything from scratch, designed everything, layered everything, mastered everything. And then, that was actually exciting. But all the rest, all the caps that we did, all these small animations that I covered then for the last year, yeah, it's not very exciting, but I have this credit, and that's what it takes, to get where you want to be.
It's
and so
great.
many people don't have that pedigree or that continuance that they get too exhausted too quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, first and foremost, huge props and kudos that you pulled through, no matter what, because I can imagine a lot of people would have basically said, "Hey guys, I'm out. That's not what I signed up for." But you made it possible, which speaks volumes about you, I think. On the other side, it is, well, it's not disheartening, but it's so typical, that even when the big studios, sound is oftentimes an afterthought, sound and preparation that goes into it. It is, I cannot.
I mean, I have to tell, kudos to Ubisoft. They wanted to build a really, really great facility. And then it just didn't happen because they grew the team from expected 12 members to over 30. And then they replanned the whole studio to a way bigger facility. And
With
I
the
was
audio
involved
team.
in that. Yeah. They
Damn.
grew the audio team to over 30 people just within a couple of years. And that's why they wanted to then build a bigger studio. So I was involved in that process, learned again so much, because that was a whole nother level what Stefan wanted to build. Like really innovative stuff. It was so interesting to get the technicalities of that level with 4K video streaming and everything, digital infrastructure, with Ravenna network and you name it. It was just amazing to learn all this alongside Heiner Niemann, shoutouts from Digital Audio Services, who is one of the most senior studio planners in Germany. I learned so much in that year. Also shoutouts to Pete Burgess, who helped me design all the Foley studio. Okay, it never came, but at least it was in planning. And I know a lot of Ubisoft facilities have very good studios. Yeah.
But what happened, if I may ask? Like you teasered a few times that it didn't happen. Like
it didn't happen because many reasons. I cannot really explain that to a certain extent, but
Okay.
it never really came to that.
Got it. But yeah, I mean, and props to Ubisoft for at least trying, I guess. But
Definitely. I mean, the time there for me, from an employer's and employment, employee
Employees.
and employer's relationship, I have nothing to complain. It was just great. The onboarding, all the professionalism within the corporate structure was completely new to me, and I was blown away by it. Like security briefings and and then also HR and all these systems in place and great coffee, and we had like a room where we could lay down and sleep, and all at a scale for a couple of hundred people. Yeah, gaming room and really like top-notch facility and very friendly environment and flexible working hours. So many people complain about whatever, but to me it was like, coming from my previous experience with smaller companies, this was just like a great experience. It was a bit unfortunate with the team structure and whatnot, but no one is to blame for that. And therefore Ubisoft for me, great experience in terms of employer, and I'm so grateful that I had this experience, and actually it helped me to get my international reputation up. I mean, that's the main thing why I started there, and they gave it to me. Yeah.
Then I'm happy that you made the experience.
Definitely. So tell me a little bit more about your experience. We have to finish soon. So let me know what we haven't discussed that is on your mind and that you want to share and that is important.
That I want to share and that is important. Honestly, I can't think of anything specifically. Let's say it's. I mean, I can talk for hours about audio topics and whatever, but there's nothing where I'm like, oh, I really need to get this out, especially not about me personally. It's like, I don't know, to be honest.
That is so humble. I mean, can we just say that I want to thank you for taking this hour with me and to share that if you are like by example, you told me that where you're coming from, that you're a systemic person, and that you had the opportunity to learn a couple of things in your childhood with cool people helping you with this, and then becoming this nerdy kind of gamer in this specific niche, and then things end up being, that you work on this stuff that you love. I mean, it's just amazing, and I really appreciate that you took the time and lead by example. By one last question: how does this whole online digital product of yours, does it sell? What is the experience with that?
Well, to me personally, better than expected, but my expectations weren't very high, to be honest. Like I can share it freely. I think I sold a bit over 110 copies or so. Like we're talking about
one product.
Yes, yes. We're talking about Revolution right now, which is my like engine synthesis content pack for Kilohertz Faceplant. By the way, shout out to Kilohertz, amazing guys. I love Faceplant. The guys themselves are super nice, like the ones that I got to talk to, and I love it. Anyway, a little bit of a fanboy here, by the way. But yeah, like a bit over 100 times. Honestly, I thought that it is so niche, like a vehicle engine synthesis suite for a specific synthesizer, that I predicted I might sell 20 units in total. It was like, yeah, that would be cool. I would still not make any money out of it in terms of hours that I put in, but I would be cool. But it ended up being like a bit over 100. So it financed our last vacation, like my part of our last vacation last year, which was nice, and a bit more, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, but you put also a lot of work into this, huh? So
yeah,
it's around 40 euros or something, right?
Yeah, 39.99 when it's not discounted.
So you get a lot for that. And I also love the name, Revolution.
Dude, I don't know how I came up with it. Like looking back, initially I was like, that's so stupid, but I couldn't come up with anything better. And I'm one of those people, like little tangent here before we close off, sorry. But I always had, I was always struggling keeping up with stuff that I really didn't want to. And I always tried to finish stuff as quickly as possible. And it was quite a burden in my life at times. And then I was diagnosed with ADHD like 2 years ago. And I first didn't really give it any credit. I was like, nah, even if I have it, whatever. My girlfriend kind of pushed me, hey, maybe you should look into it a little bit more. And it helped me to understand a little bit. And so it helped me to understand myself a bit more and how I work. And I would say it made me a more efficient worker, because parts where I previously was like, I'm just not good at it or I can't do it, turned into, I know why I might struggle with it. So it kind of helped me push through it anyway, And one of those things is the end stage of a project or a product, especially when it is my own. If I work for other people, I always have this incentive of, I need to deliver. People have expectations on me, like I want to be as diligent as possible. I freak out towards the end. Even still at my quote unquote day job at Bohemia, if there's like some bigger feature that I worked on and it's time for me to showcase it, I'm like, but if it's my own stuff, like Revolution back then, it's like, okay, the product itself is done. The fun part is over. Now I have to come up with a name, do some graphics, etc. And I kid you not, I did the trailer, the graphics, the name, and most part of the user handbook in a day. And it was just like min-maxing, like getting 80% out of 20% of the work, basically. And at this stage, I really didn't think much of it, which, again, I could only do because for me, it was a side thing that I really didn't think too much about. It was just fun to do. I wasn't thinking about, I want to grow my business per se. So again, I was just very lucky that I ended up selling more than I actually expected. Same with my YouTube channel. I was like, I'm yapping so much.
So there you go. Again, you come up with value, even though you don't want to make a business from it, but you still succeed and make more money than most people do, even if they want to sell something. Yeah.
If I may, I think I'm just realizing, like, this is a hypothesis that I'm bringing up here, but I think the reason why it might work for me specifically, and maybe also some other people, is because I don't have to act. I can act out of a privileged position, you know, like I have a pretty stable work at Bohemia, basically, I have some other smaller projects, that one I cannot really talk about, but so whenever I do something, it's really more like, hey, I want to do it. I think it is kind of unique, so I put it out there. You know, that's why I didn't upload for a long time on my YouTube channel. I don't want to upload the 20th video on how to process a vocal chain. You know, like how to set up a vocal chain, how do compressors work. I feel that we have a flooding problem there actually at the moment, because there are so many guys coming into the job market, not finding a job, and they try to find a voice, you know, like sell themselves, of course, which I guess might be the right way to do, but now everyone kind of uploads these, this is how I do this, this is how I do this, this is how I do this, and this is how I do a vocal chain. And I don't want to do that. You know, I don't want to be the 10th guy to do that. So I don't upload if I don't have to, which I can do because I don't rely on it. Like everything I do is from a very privileged position.
It's an interesting point, because I see also that you have to put yourself out there. But then, yeah, it comes to that point. Do you want to be the 50th person who makes a video about how they build their vocal chain? Or do you want to be that one person that talks about systems and complex audio systems or situations in the real world, and then you break it down into system. So your thing, yeah? No one else is doing that. No one else is talking about how to set up your home Foley setup. Yeah?
Mm.
And how do you get there? Either you get there by experience and by doing things, or you maybe get there with a mentor who can help you, yeah? Who can help you to think about what kind of content would speak to your unique approach, and you know what is it actually that you can share that no one else can. Yeah, if people cannot come up with that themselves, then maybe a mentor can help them. You know,
I agree.
and also by developing taste and reviewing their work so that they can elevate quicker.
I agree. Then again, I would throw in there, I would throw the topic we talked about earlier in there. If I'm starting out and I'm trying to find my voice, I'm just getting started. Do I have the means to consistently have a mentor at my side? You know, I don't know.
This is depending on how desperate you are, you know, and how much you want it, and how much you understand that this would actually, you know, boost it better, way more. Let's say you don't have the money. Can you borrow it? Can you work harder to get it? And then you make a bargain or not, or you understand that that's the way to go or not. Yeah. But I think people who invest in themselves with mentoring will make a bigger impact in the industry this year, next year, and the upcoming years.
Yeah, I agree with this. It's something like this whole topic. Okay. Do we have like 5 more minutes, or should we?
Yeah, why not? My editors will kill me, but
sorry, editors, but thank you, editors. But it's something that I think about a lot, because, as I said, I feel it de facto is like this. I kind of slid into the industry, you know, like I was really, really lucky, also thanks to a lot of other people. Like even, I feel like I should mention this because we talked about this, like even, you know, getting to Bohemia kind of wasn't really de facto my doing. Like I applied, but actually it was a buddy of mine back then who held touch with the company before me even, and kind of dragged me along, you know, like the company knew me, but it was like, hey, like, you know, we're both here, so do you guys want to hire us? And they were, yes. So I was basically just being sucked into this. So thanks, Andre.
by recommendation kind of thing.
Yeah, we joined together, you know, like we knew the project lead back then, who used to be the head of audio. When we got to know him, he then was the project lead, and it was always like, hey, can we join? It's like, yeah, we would have to move to Czechia, and we're like, nah, especially me, I really want to stay in Germany. And then it worked out. But how should I say? I always think the good things happen. That's what I tell myself. Good things happen when great preparation meets luck, and you cannot really change your luck so much. Like, you can push for it, you can work hard on it, but on the preparation part, you can change a lot. But then again, as someone who had this privileged thing of kind of sliding into the industry, I asked myself the question a lot, like, what would I do if everything would break down like next week? Like, in the end, I'm a contractor. They could say, hey, we don't need you anymore. And okay, I got sidetracked. I lost my point. Editors, go ahead. Sorry.
Anyhow, we can conclude that I love the conversation, to be honest.
It was great. It was great. Thanks for opening up so much about yourself as well, by the way. It was really insightful.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So let's just continue getting to know each other after this podcast. And I love to see more from you coming on your YouTube channel. And please make more cool products for us.
Likewise, man. Thank you.
Peace. Thank you very much for staying up until the end. It really means a lot to me. You're helping this channel already by staying that long. And I hope you could gain valuable information and motivation and inspiration for your own life and your own career. If you haven't done so, please subscribe. As I said, DM me on Instagram if you feel that we could collaborate together. And if you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, there's also a link in the description. I'm sharing all the actionable to-dos from our podcast in a nutshell within this newsletter bi-weekly. And that's it. Enjoy one of the next ones and see you there. Peace, the Foley teacher.